Open session. I do want to thank the members of the public that are here today for your patience. Some of the closed session and the length of it was unexpected, so I really appreciate your patience. So we have a recap, Bruce, of what happened in closed session.
Thank you, Chairman Earlham. To recap, what was discussed in closed session is the Pinelands Commission has a case at the Office of Administrative Law with a company called Summerfields West, which seeks to develop a mobile home community in Monroe Township, Gloucester County. After discussing with Summerfields and in closed session with the Pinelands Commissioners, the staff is seeking permission to enter into a settlement whereby Summerfields West would purchase Pinelands development credits for 16.7% of the remaining units or mobile home units to be built with an application which ends in the number as 0.004.
Thank you.
Move to authorize this settlement.
Second.
Are any additional questions from commissioners? All right, hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? All right, moving along to on our agenda. Wow, we're only about halfway through. We have two public development applications. The first of which is demolition of a commercial shopping center in Pemberton Township. Surprise, surprise, yeah.
I move the adoption.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, but we will not do anything until Mr. Prickett leaves the room. I know where you're going. It's going to take him longer to get to the door. Any questions or comments on the Pemberton application?
Just to say, I'm very happy with my project that this is finally the idea.
Yeah.
Dealing with that eyesore.
All right, hearing that, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion moves. Rick?
Just put him right there next time.
All right, so while Rick gets to his seat, I will at least introduce the next public development application, which is the construction of, looks like recreation facilities in Waterford Township.
I'd like to move the adoption. Second.
All right, any questions or comments or anything from the staff on this matter?
No.
None? All right, once, twice, all right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, very good. Next, we have public comment on development applications where the record is not closed. So there is a published list of public development applications. There are three. There's one for Ocean County regarding a bus garage and office building as well as a warehouse. We have one for a rec fields and a parking lot in Monroe Township and a waiver of strict compliance in Southampton. So if you have any comment on those applications, now is the time to step up to the microphone and let us know your thoughts. Once, twice, we will close that portion of public comment.
Mr. Chairman, I want to apologize, but I need to leave.
One demerit.
You put me down for a while.
All right.
Sorry.
Have a good weekend. Good luck. Mom gets better.
Thank you.
All right. We have a list of master plans and ordinances that do not require commission action. Susan, is there anything that you need to highlight on this list? No. Okay. Thank you. No. Yes.
I mean, by all means.
So next on our agenda is a presentation for land preservation, but we are going to punt that to our next meeting only because we've gone over in time. And I know there are some commissioners, myself included, that need to leave around noon. So with that being the case, we are going to move to general public comment. I believe we do have a list. I will say this again to the dismay of many, that the record is closed regarding the Bass River matter. So if you have a question or comment, you can feel free to email or call staff and put the pressure on them, but we cannot have a public comment on the Bass River matter anymore. The record is still closed. So anything else, Pinelands, feel free to step up and talk about. First, we have Jonathan Peters.
Morning, Commissioners. Thanks for taking a moment. I'll be very brief today because of the late hour. I just wanted to say I was watching. I couldn't be with you last month, but I did see Mr. Tittle of the Sierra Club speak about the idea of banning or regulating strictly marijuana growing if it's legalized in the state of New Jersey. And I'll submit my notes in detail to the commission, but I've done some work for New York State, and I really think that the commission really should take a very balanced approach to this. If they're going to make any action, and should really consider it carefully. Half of your farms are losing money right now. 57% of the, according to your own economic development, economic monitoring program, half of your farms are losing money right now. And our work in New York State has indicated that marijuana growing, carefully regulated and managed with a good set of policies behind it, could be a significant addition to the economic viability of these farms. So I think you really should take a very balanced approach. The other thing is it produces a significant amount of revenue that then would allow you to put into place legislative rules that would help prevent some of the issues that Mr. Tittle talked about, which is the pollution and the management of crop rotation and soil preservation. So if the Pinelands Commission would like to talk in detail with me, I'd be happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Carl Swanson. Yes.
Carl Swanson, Bass River Township. I have a kind of procedural question. You announced earlier that the DEP was going to be allowed to respond to some questions from the commission. And it seems that if the DEP should be allowed to add further input after a item is a closed item, that the public should also be able to have a voice and feedback information as well, because we're all learning new information as this process goes forward. So it seems reasonable that this should be reopened for public comment.
I appreciate your comment.
I mean, especially since how public comment was voted against on the minutes, because it was after the closure of the item. So I'm asking procedurally how then the DEP can add information at this late date if the public cannot.
So, sir, let me get through public comment, and then I'll ask our attorneys to respond. Is that all right, or you want to do it now?
I would just say we've extended the comment period. I mean, we've extended.
Oh, okay.
No, we have not extended. No, we have not extended this comment period.
Extension to the application, which we routinely do here, and the application remains in its current status until something else happens. But that's why we've just given them, we've given more time as they've asked for.
There's a provision within the CMP.
Then, therefore, the public be able to have the same.
So there is a provision within the CMP that allows for the applicant to ask for an extension. The applicant has asked for that extension, and we are going to, as part of that extension, some commissioners have further questions.
So if commissioners have further questions of the public, they may ask the public then also?
I don't know what, I can't speak for what questions the commissioner is going to ask, but it does need to be asked about the record that is established. So the executive director has a report.
I'm just asking then if the commission can ask DEP, can the individual commissioners ask public for further input as well?
As I understand it, we're not asking we're not as commissioners going to the DEP and asking them questions. We're asking for clarification on issues within the executive director's report. If the executive director needs the assistance of the DEP to answer some of those questions, I'm sure we'll reach out to them to answer those questions. But we as commissioners, and we up here differ on some of our opinions on how that matters as we can. If we have questions about her executive director's report, which some of us feel weren't adequately answered at the last hearing, we have the right to grant the extension to the applicant and then ask those questions of our executive director. But that only occurred because the DEP asked for an extension of the application. I know it's convoluted, I know it's difficult, and I know it's not the answer you want to hear, but
it doesn't seem fair.
It's the
I mean,
there is
I would
a
think the
process,
body
there's a
would
process and there's a precedent
fairness.
for that being done before with this body. So that is that's the process that we're going to follow, and we've decided as a body here to follow.
So then, if individual commissioners wish to have additional input from people, can they ask?
So I will not be. I'm going to be directing my questions to the executive director as I would recommend my fellow commissioners do, but I'm not going to speak for them.
Excuse my ignorance, the executive director of
Nancy,
Nancy.
she makes a report, right? She filed a report. She
Okay.
gave us a report. We voted on that report. The application got turned down.
Right.
There's provision within our rules that says if that happens, the applicant can then ask for another 30 days for essentially, I'm using this word wrong and that'll probably jump down my throat here, for reconsideration, right? So, meaning we have questions, we have things that we don't think were adequately answered. We can then go back and ask those questions of the executive director. She's formed a report that, if she needs to get additional information from the DEP based on our questions, then I'm sure she'll do that.
And then will the questions be made public at the next meeting so we can understand the dialogue that's happened?
Yeah. The next meeting it's going to be a Q&A between these commissioners and the executive director about what she's learned and what our questions are. That's absolutely
In an open
absolutely.
session?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Blitzberger.
I just want to say that I agree with everything that Carl asked, and I'm a little disturbed that the public also cannot ask some questions, because we have learned a lot more information in the time that has passed, and I don't understand why we cannot express our
Ma'am,
comments.
I don't even want to teeter with the idea of new information being expressed on the podium today. I've explained the process. I hope everybody understands it. If you need more clarity, feel free to ask staff or ask one of the attorneys after the meeting here. But as I mentioned earlier, the record is closed on Bass River, so I want to be very careful with how we move forward here in public comment.
All right,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you. Jamie Zakaria.
Since you won't let me talk about what I want to, I have nothing else to say.
Thank you. Ricky, I'm sorry, I might butcher this, Lusowitz? She left, okay. And Don Gant?
Yes, I feel the same way. Jamie said, since we can't talk, you tell us we can't talk, which I'm completely against that, not being able to talk. You did mention, you felt that the applicant's rights were violated. So do you want to expand on that? What?
So this is not public Q&A. I made my comments as part of the minutes. Sir, it's not a Q&A. This is public comment. If you have comment, comment.
My comment is what?
That's a question, sir. It's not a Q&A. Look, I made my comments. I made my opinion clear. All right, that's it.
Well, it's not all right, but just that's.
Any other? So that concludes the list of public comment. Is there anybody else in the public that has a comment? Once, twice. All right, we will close that portion of public comment. We did have another. No, we're not going into closed session again. So, are there any comments before we adjourn? Are there any comments from commissioners? This side of the room, Mark.
Chairman, thank you. We make a.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. You asked the question. May I have another comment?
I'll defer if you will, Chairman.
Sir.
Thank you.
I'm trying to be as fair as I can up here, okay? He asked a question, I contemplated it, and yes, he can, all right?
Thank you. Carl Swansteen, Bass River. My question was, I'd like to attend the next meeting as well. When you have the open discussion and we hear feedback from DEP, if we have questions, can we comment on that at that time during open session? During the public comment period?
The public record is closed on the matter, so that's the rules, and that's what we've decided as a body. Here's how we're going to proceed. I know there's some that are frustrated with that. That's not my decision. That's the rules that the CMP set in terms of public comment on the matter. So no, there will not be another public comment period on Bass River, if that's what you're asking.
So one team gets to talk again, but the other team doesn't.
Again, public comment is closed. I asked for comments regarding commissioners. I believe, Mr. Lobauer, you did have a comment.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes.
Chairman, in response to the member of the public, you were kind enough to say that there was dissension among us in reviewing that issue of public comment. And, as a member of this body, I certainly will abide by the determinations of the majority of this body. I'll simply comment that I lament the fact that we have taken a stance that opposes public comment. I don't think that's what we're about. I regret that we did that. Separately, I'd like to make another comment, Chairman, and that is that today we have the spectacle of climate change rearing its ugly head to us on both sides of our nation. Hurricane Florence is quite possibly the most devastating hurricane that we will have faced in our history, no doubt due to the warming of the ocean. Out in California, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll curtail it there. I'll just say.
I don't want to cut you off.
No. It's true. We have to have the ability to adjourn. And I'll simply say that I think that it's essential, it's critical that we stop talking and start acting toward addressing climate change policy here at the Pinelands Commission, that we do something to add a climate change policy to the CMP. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Were there any other comments from commissioners? So I did want to congratulate Commissioner Quinn on his nomination to run for freeholder in Ocean County. So congratulations. All right. Hearing no more comments.
Chair, I move we adjourn.
There we go. A second.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye. All right. Meeting is adjourned.